Hey, welcome back to another video. I think this one should be a lot shorter than the previous two. I wanted to basically show you two things. First is the player lighting system that I ended the last video talking about. I want to show you a few things that I tried and kind of show you where I landed, and then show you some of the things I've done to just flesh out the world a little bit. So let's get started. Originally, I had a point light on the player character that just kind of illuminated the character a little bit. And then I had a spotlight on the character's shield, with the idea being that the shield was sort of like a holy relic, and you could hold it up to block but also use it as an illumination source. And what I found when I was actually just playtesting the game was that little point light on the character was too dim to actually illuminate any of the surroundings. So I pretty much always had to have my shield up to be able to see anything, and I didn't like that. I wanted to, make the light from the shield a bonus, not something that was necessary. So the first thing I tried was essentially getting rid of the point light, and then detaching the spotlight from the shield and just putting it in front of the character, just to kind of give illumination like at all times to the forward direction, and just making it so that when you held the block button, the light just got brighter. And that was okay. Didn't feel great. But the biggest problem with it was when I would hold up my shield, I would get a shadowing from the shield. So that's kind of where I left off on the last video. One of my friends, Tim, he actually messaged me after that, and he posed the question, well, where's this, in the sense of the lore of the game, where's this light actually emanating from? And he's suggested, could it be coming from the character's eyes? And while I'm not sure, exactly what my lore justification is for the light at this moment, that's something I'll play around with. I did think moving the light to the eye location would probably be a good idea. So I tried that out, and it did get rid of the shadowing from the shield, which was good. So I had a light that was basically, illuminated enough of the world so that you could walk around and see things without having to pull up your shield. But it was still dark enough that in certain scenarios you would want to bring up your shield for a little extra light. So then I wanted to try something to make it feel a little better, because it was essentially just, the entire screen would go from a dim to a bright to a dim to a bright, depending on what I was doing. And that didn't feel great. So I wanted to try something where, bringing up the shield kind of focused the light. If you kind of imagine, like in Alan Wake, when he focuses the light beam on an enemy to kind of burn away the darkness. I was kind of thinking something like that, where it's like, okay, my, default light settings is just, enough light so that I can see what I'm doing. And then I can choose to like focus my light and, number one, provide extra illumination, but maybe two, also that could have an effect on an enemy possibly. So I came up with a little system, and let me see. I've changed it since then, but I'm going to change it back really quick so that you can see what it looked like before what I ended up with. All right, so this is the first thing that I ended up with. So I'm going to make this full screen. So you can see I've got, a bit of illumination around me. Ignore that sound. We'll talk about that later. But it's still dark enough where it's, you can't really see very far. Got kind of keep that spookiness vibe where you're not really sure what's ahead of you. But then I can, focus my light and make it a little bit brighter. But what's happening here is I'm essentially shrinking the radius of the light and making it brighter at the same time. So I'm kind of, getting that gradual focusing of the light. And there was also the drawback of when you do this, everything around you gets darker. So there's like a little bit of a trade-off, right? There's like, okay, I can't see very far with this default light, but I can kind of see, my immediate surroundings pretty good. But when I focus, okay, now what's in front of me is nice and clear, but then the periphery I kind of lose. So it was, the idea behind that was sort of a trade-off. So yes, you can make your light brighter, but you're sacrificing something else to kind of, make it more of a, like, you don't want to just make it bright all the time. But I'll show you what kind of happened, why I ended up changing away from this. So I've got a little enemy in here somewhere. Oh, here. Alright, so I'm fighting this enemy. Don't worry, like, none of my attacks work right now, and he's just doing the same thing over and over. Don't worry about that. Just visually, when I don't have my focus light up, it looks pretty good, right? But when I try to block, it becomes super focused, and the enemy himself kind of gets shadowed because he's nice and close to me. So it just didn't really feel great doing this method. So I'll show you what I ended up switching to. So I ended up actually going back to having the light on the shield itself. However, I kept the eye light as my default light, and the shield light is just a bonus on top of that. So the reason that I kind of liked having the light on the shield is the physicality it adds to it. So when it was just kind of detached from everything, the light just kind of would focus in, focus out, focus in, focus out. But it was, I don't know, it felt kind of detached from anything. But I think when I switch it to the shield, sorry, it did a little load there. You see, it's got a little bit of motion to it. So I like that motion. Like, I feel like it makes the light feel like it's more grounded. And also, I don't know how easy you can see it, but here, let me make it bigger. I also increased the volumetric scattering of the shield light, so there's a little bit, might not be easy to see in this, but there's a little bit of fogginess that the light picks up. And I also added a mask, like a texture to the light. So instead of having just a perfect, evenly lit, uniform circle, there's a little bit of fluctuations in the light. I don't know if that's coming through the video that well, but hopefully you can see that. And so, like, the idea behind that was I kind of wanted it to feel like almost like a reflection coming off of your shield. So, your shield is, textured and maybe it's got ripples and things like that in it. And so as the light kind of like reflects off of that, there's a little bit of imperfections in the light. So if I go back over here to my little enemy guy and kind of mimic a little fight, you can kind of see when I bring up my shield, I no longer lose the lighting on the perimeter because it's two different lights now. And also because the light is attached to my shield, the enemy stays nice and lit up. He doesn't get too shadowed. So while I kind of lose the concept of having to sacrifice the outer light to get the focus light, I think this just feels better. And I think the fact that the default light here is bright enough that I can get around, and I don't feel like I have to have the focus light up all the time. So that's really what I was going for. I wanted the focus light to be like a bonus that you would use when needed, but you don't feel like you need it all the time. So this is the current system that I'm going to roll with for now. I still may make changes to this as we go. Some other things that I was thinking about adding to it are some like sound effects maybe. I'm still playing around with what would feel right or sound right. But I was kind of thinking, as you hold up your focused light, almost a kind of slowly intensifying hum or something like that. Like the longer you're focusing it, the more intense it's getting, but I'll play with that later. So yeah, that enemy, I am not going to spend time talking about that right now because that's a whole video in itself. But this is something that I actually worked up a couple months ago. I just haven't talked about it lately because I've been kind of putting that off. But I will make a video about the AI, the enemy AI and stuff soon. But the other thing I wanted to talk about in this video, and I realize I'm already making this longer than I intended. I did figure out something else that I was working on, how to essentially prevent the procedural trees from spawning in certain areas so that I can, put up houses and buildings and things like that. So over here, here's an example where I put one of these volumes just around one of these big rocks so that I didn't have trees growing through the middle of the rock here. And something else I did was I extended my little splines here that do the same thing. They keep the trees off the trail. And so I have expanded my little world here. I've extended my roads. You can see I have a couple of different paths here. Yeah, I'm trying to get a nice bird's eye view for you. So yeah, I have right now, the road splits in a couple of different ways. And then when we get over here, I've set up a little farm to get started. And over here, I have another little farm. And over here, I've got a little village set up. And then the path goes all the way towards the castle. So I've got a little gateway here, another little guard tower, and then you can follow the path all the way up. Got a little bridge here, and then here's my big ugly temporary castle. This is going to be a big undertaking, making this like an actual thing. I think for this one, I might end up doing an interior, like you load into a whole separate level, so that I can have, a cool looking facade here that's visible in the main world, but then I can have a designed level on the inside that doesn't necessarily have to adhere to the structure that you see on the outside. But I'm not putting too much thought into that just yet. So for these new things that I added, I'm kind of going with the motto of just make it, you can make it good later. So for this little village, I literally just cleared out the trees with this little volume, and then I just started dropping houses in here in sort of a random pattern, and then I added the walls, and then I added the little gatehouse, and then I was like, oh, it'll be cool to have like a little church in the middle. Oh, let's actually put the church on a hill, so I raised that up and kind of arranged so there's like a little street here, whatever. Still a lot of work to do there, but at least it's started and I can make it good later. Same thing with the farms here. Kind of just got the basic foundation for these things, and I'll make them better later. But I did want to show you this particular farm because it already looks pretty cool, if I do say so myself. So I'm going to actually play this so you can kind of see it in its full glory here. Alright, so walking along a trail here. Don't mind this fence right here. I just tossed it down as a reminder to actually build out fences around the farms eventually, but so I added this like wheat field here. So this, the farm essentially is long dead. Everybody's dead, but the wheat just kind of kept on growing here in the field. You can see I added some crows flying around up in the sky. Something that I was playing with was, instead of having like a compass on the screen that has like points of interest marked on it, I was thinking it'd be cool if I could just use visual things in the world to kind of draw you towards points of interest. And one of the things that I was considering is like having this, flock of crows flying around. It's like if you were just walking along and you saw these crows flying in the sky, you would know, oh, I should go over there and see what that's about. I'm not sure if it's going to work though, because, you can only see these things from so far away. And usually, in this instance, you would have seen the windmill and stuff at the same time that you saw the crows. So they probably wouldn't be necessary to get your attention. However, I do think they look pretty cool. And I added a little sound effect for them too, so when I get close enough, you should be able to hear them. So got a little ruined farmhouse here. A little stable over there. And I think this is pretty cool too, this little windmill. I figured out how to get the little blades spinning, so it's like nobody's here anymore, nothing's working anymore, but the wind is still kind of turning the blades on the windmill. don't think I can actually animate these little gears in the middle, unfortunately. They're just part of the static mesh for the windmill. But I did add the cool creaky sounds of the blade spinning, and I got some little dust particles in here, so I think this is pretty freaking cool, honestly. I can make some creepy things happen here. Alright. Well, that's all I really wanted to show you for this video. Hopefully you thought that was cool. So, thanks for checking it out, and see you in the next one.